Um, everything after this is live, so you know.
How long is the podcast?
It's not gonna be long. A lot, as long as you want it to be.
Yeah.
I don't know though. You might. Oh, you have that too. Yo, why does? Can I see actually? Before you know the bracelet. That's the
Van Cleef.
and the Lucia collection, right? That's what it's called, I think.
I don't know why. This is not the real Van Cleef. This is from Salt Dab.
Okay. Okay. There's a collection that they recently came out with.
Oh, really?
It's called the Andalusia collection. It's the Islamic Empire in Spain. Me and this guy went there, and I wanted it so bad. Not the bracelet, but they have other stuff like rings and stuff like that. It looks so cool.
Nice.
But yeah, it can be as long as you want it to be. But inshallah, is there anything you don't want us to talk about? Don't want us to touch on?
No, I'm alright.
Don't want us to stay away from? Some people, they got baby mama drama. Some people got cases. So we don't want to give people, like I said, we're not the Breakfast Club. So
It's alright. It's alright. It's fine.
awesome. All right. Welcome back to Ghost Talk, y'all. It's your host, Mohammed Sharif. I'm here with my co-host, Thunder, and a very special guest today. I'm not gonna lie, like, I have a lot of questions for you. I feel like this is one of the very few podcasts in which, like, I don't know a lot about you. We've never met before. I like your vibe. You're very cool, mashallah.
Thanks.
And when we met at Abdurrahman's premiere, and Abdurrahman told me a little bit about you, I was like, yo, I want to interview her because she seems so interesting, you know? I want to know more about her and like what she does. But not only that, here on Goats Talk, like the concept of our podcast is we interview goats, right? People who greatest of all time that are achieving greatness, that are doing great things. But we also want to give our viewers a sense of relatability, you know? And by doing that, the way we kind of do that is we trying to get to know the person. Just like, it's not your whole life isn't about your work. You're an individual as well. You know what I'm saying? So we try to do that as well. And inshallah, like, we'll touch on that, and we'll touch on a few other things, and hopefully we'll get you out of here pretty quick, inshallah. We can start with you being an Arsenal fan though. I
knew this is coming. It's always gonna be football. It's always gonna be football.
What did they say? What have Americans been saying to you?
Soccer. No, it's not soccer. It's football.
Oh my goodness.
No, yeah, it's about Arsenal. I'm from Manchester as well, and then when I say Arsenal, people are like triggered.
That's exactly how it went down right now.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm a United fan.
But there's context to why I'm an Arsenal fan.
Oh, so many people are Arsenal fans. Damn near all of them.
Yeah, but like there's like a huge mass migration to the UK.
Okay.
Around like 2002, 2003, 2004,
Okay.
right? And that's like the golden era of Arsenal. Like it was like in the Prem, it was like the All Black team.
Okay.
So obviously, like it's a team that you can relate to, that you see that like
that's winning.
it was Black Excellence, that entire lineup. So yeah, I think that's why we all supported, and of course all my brothers supported it. So I was like, yeah, I'm an Arsenal fan.
I didn't know that. I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's why, because I grew up in Cedar. Everybody's an Arsenal fan. It's like that Cedar is like Somali Central. Everybody there is an Arsenal fan. And when Arsenal and Man U would play, I would be just the one kid sitting there like, I'll support. Because I'm a Ronaldo fan. That's how I grew up watching Ronaldo play for Man U. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I hear that.
for me, it's just that's who I like. But
it's that particular era. I think it's that era that made us. And then you just got to stay loyal as Arsenal fan. Like, there's a level of loyalty that we had to just.
Yo, I respect that though. Like, I was about to say soccer again. Don't
do it.
Football fans have a level of loyalty that's like
absolutely
unmatched.
I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, City's like is like the Brooklyn Nets.
Fake fans. I'm gonna cancel for this.
City.
Because my own siblings are like.
One
of our brothers is a City fan, and I'm like.
Man City, they're like Brooklyn Nets fans.
It's a fake fan. They're the fans that can be bought.
Oh, Brooklyn Nets.
Or Lakers fans. You know how like nobody's really a Lakers fan. It's just like
it's just
everybody's a Lakers fan in a way. That's kind of how it's like. People just.
I feel like it's a similar thing though with Lakers, because it was like
when they start winning.
There was a time when like Lakers were on their game, right? And then all of a sudden,
everybody loved Kobe. All the Fobs, they love Kobe, man. Kobe Bryant. That's the guy that they support.
That's your guy. So you was a Lakers fan back in the day.
Back in the day.
Everybody was. Except I didn't like Kobe. I was a Celtics fan. He beat Kobe. They beat Kobe
finals.
beat them, and then I was upset. I didn't like the guy. I was like, fuck that guy.
2010 finals.
Yeah.
Like
but
Boston.
But you know what? I assume that you guys don't watch football at all here.
Oh,
I thought
no,
it'd be
we
like
do.
basketball. And then I realized actually the Somali community like are very much into their football.
Yeah.
Regardless of where they are in the world.
See that all at Somali shops every day. The halal.
if you go to a
Yeah.
Somali shop or a Somali restaurant on a Saturday morning, like 6 a.m.
Yeah, I was told you guys are watching it crazy hours.
Yeah, y'all
There's a
play
time
like
difference.
exactly. Y'all play in the afternoon, right?
That's crazy.
Folks are up 6. Fajr to
fine.
Kadan, they're at. You'll see like maybe 100 folks.
That's dope.
Kudufo, pass, garay, ah, and they're just
I love
yelling.
that. I love
guys
that. So
dropping in the
cool.
group chat in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, bro, what's up?
Yo, y'all trying to watch the game? That's what they say. When is it?
Yeah.
5 a.m. You lost me there, brother.
See, one of my friends that watches the NFL here, so he's watching at crazy hours as well.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, why would you be up at the stupid o'clock just watching the NFL?
Yeah, it's not worth it. This is your first time
It's
in
my
the
first time in
States.
the US.
What is that experience been like?
It's the ghetto. I'm kidding. Now I lie to you. I feel like the US is I think it's like the bigger version of the US in like every sense. Of
The UK. Okay.
So like everything's just bigger, everything is grander. I think Minnesota's like interesting because you guys are very friendly here.
Oh yeah.
And I thought like I'm from Manchester. I thought we were friendly, but like nah, people are just unnecessarily
Man, I
friendly.
thaught it's like creepy a little bit.
It's literally
It's
like
a little
too much. It's
creepy,
like
yeah.
a conversation. Everywhere I go to the store, how you doing, man?
Yeah.
You having a good day? Da-da-da. And I'm like, why did you care about my business?
Yeah.
So it's something to get used to actually.
How many I love your accents have you gotten yet?
Oh my god, all the time to the point where I just don't want to speak.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then I say something. She's from London. I'm
She's
like,
from
I'm not.
London. Oh no.
I'm not. London's not the country.
You're from Manchester. How far? It's like an hour drive, right? I would say.
It's like a 4-hour drive.
Oh
Or
wow.
like 2 hours on the train.
Yikes.
Wow. And then a flight from London to Manchester is like $60. I bet £60. Some crazy shit. £50. The flights.
People take trains. I don't know.
The flights like throughout Europe.
Yeah.
It's cheap. It's crazy
I
cheap.
mean, throughout Europe, but like within country, people just don't fly
Yeah.
in the country that much. So I don't think it would be cheap.
Yeah.
I'd be down to do that. Just
Oh,
take
yeah.
a train from country to country.
I went
people take
to
trains.
I went to London.
It's very, very, very like cheap in comparison. Well, it's probably cheaper to fly actually, if I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
It's much cheaper to fly.
But
Like I've taken flights that cost like £8-10.
Y'all train system though is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to London, I would say, I think last year, June. Yeah, last year, June.
Oh, nice.
I loved it. It's really nice. It's amazing. But I was mostly in like central London.
Okay,
You know what I mean? Nice,
Yeah,
the city
it's like
part.
the gentrified areas.
Yeah,
Nice communities.
I was a tourist. You know, I'm not gonna go to. I know
What do you mean?
Asakana.
You gotta see up the ends.
I'm
Do
not
you know
going
what
to
I
the
mean?
ends
When
now.
I go to a place, I want to be with the locals. I want to see where the locals are.
Maybe the next time I come, I'll go. I was at the Tate Museum. I was.
Oh, you went to the Tate? Yeah,
Yeah,
you were
the-
moving.
yeah.
You were moving bougie.
I was
We love that
moving
for you.
Caucasian a little bit.
I love
It
the
was
Tate.
the other way around for me because I went in 2018. I was staying with family at the time,
Nice.
but I did not like it.
Wait, what area did you stay in?
Was it Edmonton?
Edmonton. Oh, you was in N. See, that's how you do it.
That's ends.
You experienced London.
I'm all right. Here, I know how to maneuver.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
said
yeah.
earlier, you like to deal with the devil, you know, or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I know how to maneuver here. I know how to deal with people.
Yeah, but it's the same thing for me. Like,
Yeah.
people are like, oh, would you ever move to the US? It's like, nah, I wouldn't. It's
Hagas,
like, why would I move from one place to another? It's basically the same.
yeah.
You know what I mean? In
Hagas
different
ano
ways.
rega yo. Hey yo fam, where you from, blood? Something like that. I'm okay.
Nah, I'm telling you, like, there's like false like misconception about like the UK.
London?
Like, oh yeah, you're gonna get shot at. You're gonna get stabbed. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get stabbed. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not about that road life, you're not
Exactly.
involved in anything.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's gonna come near you. Nobody's gonna touch you. Like, mind your own business. People mind their own. You know what I mean? Like, it's all share code.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with Minneapolis. I grew up in Minneapolis my whole life. And
Yeah.
It's like when I tell people I'm from Cedar, from Minneapolis, it's the same concept. Oh my God. I tell ghetto. I say,
Yeah.
listen, if you just mind your business, nothing's gonna happen to you. Nobody's gonna do anything to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
What do they say? You from the hood?
You from the hood. I'm like, it's really not. We live in the Midwest of America in Minnesota. We're okay. Nothing's really hood here. It's not like it's.
no, actually, I think Minnesota's quite nice.
Yeah,
It's quite
Minnesota's
nice. I think
nice.
there's probably worse states I could have gone to.
Oh yeah. You could have went to like Mississippi.
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 I don't think that's ever.
You wouldn't even understand the people down there. But I don't even understand what they're
I
saying.
think that's
sometimes.
gonna be on the anywhere south. Hagaha, like
Yeah,
slowly. Let me work
they're the
myself.
sweetest people though. They have the
Do you know-
most hospitality out of all of
Yeah,
America.
but are they like are they
Mississippi?
sweet? Because it's like the get out nice, you know, like
No,
it's like you should be
actually,
worried.
no. Wallahi,
About them.
you know what? For them, it's everything is.
Canadians have the
Yeah, Canadians have that get out nice.
Yeah.
But for the Southerners, everything is like that. Everything is just straight. If they hate you, they hate you. They will tell you like, yo, I don't like you.
But you know what? This is what I was saying about you lot. I think like a lot of like people here are just nice for the sake of being nice.
Minnesota, yes.
Yeah.
They're gonna smile at you. Go around the corner, call the police. Oh, there's a black guy standing here. He's threatening. Wallahi,
I
Southerners,
sense that though.
Southerners, the South not like
It's like,
that.
yeah, but this is what I mean. I'd much rather deal with the devil I know because
Yeah.
in the UK,
It's like that.
it's like no, not really. Like if they don't like you, they don't like you. They'll mug you.
Okay.
I'm like cool. I know where we stand, my G.
Yeah,
I'll keep it stepping.
that's how it is. Wallahi, I'm glad that you're enjoying your time here.
It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Um,
I've definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't come in the winter. The winters are.
Really get me mad.
How about
I was
Sola?
born in Sweden.
treacherous.
I was born in Sweden,
Is it
so I
cold?
know snow. We have snow. Okay, I'm not saying we have like Minnesota snow. We
Yeah.
probably don't because I've seen some videos. But we have snow. I grew up in snow, so I know snow. But I just hate the cold.
Yeah, it's not
So
it.
I would never travel to anywhere colder than where I already am.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Wallahi, it's not it. So
say
you said you were born
anywhere else in the world.
where?
Anywhere, there's nowhere else close than else on Antarctica or something.
Yeah, Minnesota. Like certain times of the year, Minnesota.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Minnesota is the worst. Like it's the coldest place.
Really, even
We're
worse
talking
than like
about-
Canada, because I know Canada get like.
We're
crazy
talking about
snow.
negative 50 wind chill, negative 35 wind chill. Like it's insane. Yeah, people's cars don't start.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that bad the past few years. We've been getting a lot of snow.
I think this year's
we get snow.
winter was like recorded as one of the worst.
Yeah.
Because we get snow. Like we've been getting more and more snow, so I can only imagine it's getting worse for you lot.
Yeah, it's bad. So you said you were born in Sweden. So tell me a little bit about like just your upbringing,
Swede.
like you're Swedish, like Swedish Somali.
I was tried it.
But tell me a little bit about that.
I was
Like,
just born in Sweden.
what was that like? So you were born in Sweden, then
Yeah.
did you move to the UK afterwards, or?
I did. So I was born in Sweden, and then I moved to I didn't move. My parents just made that decision for us.
Mm-hmm.
We moved to the UK like when I was 9 years old. So I kind of grew up in the UK. Like I'm a Brit.
Yeah.
I'm not really Swedish. I just have their passport.
That's nice.
And I've been back and forth a few times. Like I don't really claim Sweden like that.
Yeah.
Especially those Somali Swedes back there. You mean they try
Hey,
to clean it?
shout out to the Somali Swedes though. I love that.
It's all love. It's all
All
love. I'm
love.
kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
course.
But yeah, I came to the UK and like kind of grew up there. So that's where I went to like primary school, high school. I think you guys don't call it primary school, right?
Elementary school.
Elementary, yeah, it's
Yeah.
primary school. Then I went to high school, and then college and then university. So like my formative years was in the UK. So I call myself more of a British Somali than a Swedish Somali.
I think you're the first Brit we've had on the show.
Yeah.
We've never had it. Yeah. So
Representing all of the UK.
shout out
Okay.
to you.
I love that.
So for us, like, of course, like school and that upbringing and that experience that we've had is a formative part of our upbringing.
Yeah,
Was it the same? Would you say it's the same in the UK? And what was that experience like as well?
Yeah.
Like, is there a lot of Somalis in your school? Is that an experience that you've had? Because here in Minnesota, there's Somali schools where like we have only Somali people that go to the school with us. You know, some of the teachers are Adan, but yeah,
Somali.
Awesome.
yeah, ours like I'm
Like,
serious.
Maybe one Ottoman, one Arab.
Yeah, but they're
Straight up.
all Somali. Like, there's no white people.
Crazy.
And then some people decide to go to high schools which are like he went to a high school that was all Somali,
Like
but
what am I saying? Predominant. We're saying all Somalis.
all like
Like
99%.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The principal is Somali, the
low-key think that's so
director.
cool.
Was that experience the same
No.
for you in the UK? Okay.
Absolutely not. That's so cool. Okay, first of all, we don't have like huge concentrated of Somali communities in the same way that you guys do.
Yeah, you guys are kind of spread out.
Yeah, it's not the fact that we're spread out. It's the fact that like there isn't enough of us to be able to fill out a school in that way, anyways. And then at the same time, we are spread out. Like for me, we moved to. My parents made a decision to move to a small town called Bolton outside of Manchester, and the area that we lived in was like a very Adan area.
Yeah.
Right. So when I first moved to the area, I remember me and my siblings, we hated it because it was just all Adans. And we went to the school and it was like, so I went from Sweden where predominantly most people in my class, right, were Timijilas, Arabs.
Timijilas are Indians, right?
Asians. You guys don't say Timijilas, do you? What do you guys say?
You know what's fucking hilarious is my sister's best friend told me that today. Not today, like yesterday. She's like,
what do you guys say?
There's not a lot of them here. That's why. There's not a lot of them here. Yeah. When I went to India and Canada, there's a lot. India and Canada, there's a lot of.
It's funny because like they differentiate.
But they call them Timijilas.
Timijilas are Asians, and then like British honors are Arabs.
Asians, and they are
In the other, yeah. That was a little bit problematic.
Arabs, you call it what? British honor.
British honors.
أنا كنا معنا مرق بريسة عنا. My favorite is Timijilas.
I don't make the terms.
Yeah, you
just
just
make the terms. I just stick with them.
Yep.
But like, that's actually hilarious. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Because you guys don't have. What do you guys nicknames for other communities?
No, like we're not gonna. You see, he's trying to get us in trouble. We're gonna do this.
We're gonna talk about that later.
You wanna say it? You can say it. I don't care.
I'm say it. So what's the other?
No. Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
This is the this fine young lady. She works with the UN. We don't want to get her in trouble.
Anywho.
We'll tell you after though. But
it's all love. It's all love. We love all the communities.
We do. Yes, here in Minnesota too. The prominent communities here. We don't have a lot of like Indians and stuff like that, but we have other demographics. Right? Not really. Well, yeah.
Mexicans.
But we just say Arab.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what's the other like?
There's a lot of Mexicans. There's a lot of Mexican Native Americans. There's a lot of
Native Americans.
There's Hmong. There's a lot of Hmong. There's a lot of like
Tibetan.
Well, it's just mostly us. We're the minority here. You feel me? So.
I know about that.
Yeah. Well, I heard quite in Minnesota. I mean, especially. I would say we do. I'm not gonna lie.
Minnesota is very, very predominantly like Somali.
I
feel the presence when I'm walking around.
So you guys have a lot of those kind of demographics there. And
so we have so in Sweden I'm talking about, by the way, right? So it was like in my class there was like Arabs, there was Ethiopians, Eritreans. It was just like it was a very mixed class and loads of Somalis where I grew up in Sweden, right? And then I came to the UK and then my class is Adan. Just all Adan. Right, and I'm like literally the only black person in the room.
Wow!
So it was like a crazy, like weird, especially because when I came to visit my family the year before we moved, I went to like my family lived somewhere in like North London, and I saw loads of Somalis. So I thought to myself, I'm just gonna come to a place that looks like similar to like where I came from, right?
Yeah.
Nah, it was completely different. My dad had other things in mind. So I remember my first thing was like, how am I ever gonna assimilate, like even like blend into this environment? But that area was so racist. We ended up moving from it because I remember we had these like really racist neighbors, and they like would break my dad's like car windows.
No.
They would throw eggs on our window. Like they just hated us.
Wow.
And they weren't even like middle class like white people. They were just like they were just racist white people. You know what I mean? It was like it was a deprived area, and they just were angry that a black face kind of moved into that street. So it would just give us hell like consistently.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like my like welcome to the UK.
Yeah.
So me and my siblings were like, yeah, we hate this place. We want to go back to Sweden. Like immediately, like we want to go back to Sweden. We want to go back to Sweden. We want to go back to Sweden. Consistently on my mom's case, until like she was like, tough luck, you ain't going back to Sweden.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, my mum and her siblings, like they move in teams. Like everybody went from Sweden to the UK.
That's a lot of Somali folks too. They want to be around family, which is important. It's good.
Yeah, 100%. We built communities in that way, innit? And also I think that there was a whole thing of like, there was a stronger Muslim community in the UK, and that was the reason my mom wanted us to move. She wanted us to be able to go to Duksi, learn the Quran, be able to like experience like a strong Muslim community, because I think the community in Sweden is a little bit different to the one in the UK. The UK is seen as a more conservative community, and so like I guess we had to get past it. We had to but then my dad decided to like move us completely to a different area. And when we moved to the new area, it was just Asians. Like it was predominantly Asians in my school, and a few black people, a few Adan people, but predominantly Asians area. But it was like Muslims, you know what I mean? So it was easier to navigate because you can. There's of course going to be racism, right? Like there's a level of like racism that happens, but I'd much rather deal with that.
Yeah,
you know, like it was easy to navigate that. Because we were all Muslims at the end of the day, you know what I mean? So, but that was an interesting thing to navigate. But and then college was completely different because like college, like the way so our college isn't actually college for you
guys. Have like Form
it's like
A
your
or
junior and senior year.
A levels, is that what it's called?
A-levels, yeah, it's like your junior senior year. So like, so that's a different thing to us. We either go to sixth form, we go to college, right? When I went to sixth form, and that was predominantly like.
So what's that? What's sixth form?
So it was like when I was doing my A levels.
Okay.
To go to university.
Yeah.
So I did so you pick particular courses, like what you're gonna essentially like major in, and that helps you like what you're gonna do in university. It's like figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life, and like doing the prerequisites to get you there.
Yeah.
So y'all basically don't have generals, y'all go straight into.
Yeah.
So what if you don't know what you want to do with your life?
I mean, this was me. Like I didn't have any clue what I wanted to do with my life, and I don't think I still do.
Okay.
I think that's the honest truth.
I think that's the best though.
Yeah, I think I remember when I was in college picking my A levels, and my dad was on my case. Like he was like, I was like big on education. That was his one thing. He's like, I don't care what you do in life, as long as like you put your head down.
I mean, that's also my
and
parents.
You're like, so. But like he was like when I say educator, like he would sit down with a book.
Okay.
And had a room with a whiteboard and books, and like he would teach us himself. He would sit down with me, like he would I would do like when I would do my homework, my essays, he would go and like look over it. He'd go study things. Like when I was doing psychology at A levels, my dad was a pilot. Like, but he would study psychology so he could study with me.
Wow.
And make sure that I'm on game. So like when I say my dad was like
okay, this is a little bit different.
He was on a different level. He was always on our case. And so I had to take education serious by force.
Yeah.
But then when it came to like picking university, he wanted me to do medicine. And I knew I did not want to do sciences. I was like, it's not for me. I don't like sciences. I like maths. I loved maths. So I was like, how can I convince him otherwise?
Yeah.
Like looking at like doing the basic thing of like how do I make loads of money?
Yeah.
Right? Like all of us as like the children of migrants, like I've seen our parents go through like struggle, right? We want to be able to put them out of that struggle. So in my head, like I just wanted to go to university and get a job that's going to make me like top dollar. Like how do I make so much money that my parents can live comfortable, retire, enjoy life, go back to Somalia if they want to, whatever they want to do.
Just bash up.
Exactly. That was my priority, right? So I did accounting and finance. That's what I did. I went to university, did finance.
So you went to school for accounting and finance. Wow.
I did accounting and finance. Okay. And it was when I was at university that I started getting involved in like campaigning. And like I was like, oh shit, like actually maybe money ain't maybe making money in like accounting isn't like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm supposed to be doing something more meaningful, more important.
Not to cut you off, sorry, but campaigning, like what is that for? Like could you like campaigning as in like is it is that where you started your advocacy work? Or are you talking about like campaigning for like politicians or?
No, it was more like advocacy work.
Okay.
But like it was on like campus level.
Okay.
So I started doing like little things on campus, and I was like, oh, this is like kind of like bringing people together behind a cause, and then like achieving the goals that we set out to do. And then like, oh damn, okay, we did something here. Like maybe we could do something different. Maybe we could do something more. Maybe we could do something more impactful. And it went from like small changes to like impacting like bigger things on campus and off campus, and working locally like with the councils, and then working like across universities. So it was just like it just escalated for me. So I was just like, okay, I feel like this is more of my calling than I am like doing accounts for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So then that's amazing. I really want to get into that, right? And the work that you do, and the capacity that you work in. So what was that transition like? First off, before we jump into that, if you don't mind sharing, because a lot of people, especially that come from our community, when they do make a transition like that, the family and the parents and the relationship that you guys have and the communication, it's kind of hard. It's kind of difficult. You know what I mean? So how did you navigate that? Like, what was that experience like, if you don't mind sharing?
Nah, do you know what? It's difficult because when you go into something that like, I think contextually, like one of the first things that I was involved in was around, was a campaign on FGM.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's an issue that affects our community directly.
Oh, very much so.
And it was with the
FGM?
Female genital mutilation.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's something that you said, it's something you can touch on it more too, but it's something that happens a lot in Somalia, especially in East Africa. And it's very brutal and it's a very sad thing. But you could touch on it. You can talk about it more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to necessarily go into the subject itself.
Yeah.
But that was like the first kind of like campaign thing that I was involved in, and it was with a local organization, like in where I was living, where I was growing up. And I remember like it was the first time I'd heard of it, right? And then I remember like my grandma used to live with us, and I was like this naive little girl, and I go to my grandma and I'm like, hey, like if we were in Somalia, like would I have an FGM done? And she's like, yeah, of course. And I looked at her and I'm like, how does somebody that loves me, right, this much, like willing to hurt me in that way? And it was like understanding actually what it means, like the cultural significance behind something, right?
Yeah.
And then I think I took that with me because I understood when we make policies, right, when we do campaigns, when we're involved in like making systemic change, there needs to be like a deeper understanding of like how it affects communities, right? So like let's take FGM as an example, right?
Yeah.
Like it's something that is so barbaric. It takes away from a woman in a way that you can never give back, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's done with love, right? And those things make no sense, right? When you put it together. But actually, if you've grown up in a cultural environment where this is the set norm, right, and you don't know any better, right? But then regulations come in by somebody that doesn't even understand that world, and it criminalizes you, right? It puts you in a position where you feel like your culture's been taken away from you, and then you retreat, right?
Or you push back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's to me, like when I work in like campaigning or policy, it's actually understanding like what's the human story behind what we're doing and why we're doing it. Yeah. And I took that away with me because I remember like working with like politicians and like these people that had no idea what FGM, to them it was like these Somalis were barbaric, like these people of color that are doing this to their communities are barbaric. But actually, like, it was understanding that like, no, it is something that's been made a cultural norm, right? And it has it has very sexist roots, right? It has nothing to do with Islam. It has nothing to do with like our culture as like our actual culture, right? It's just something that has like been passed down again and again and again and again, to the point where if I grew up in Somalia, right, and I wasn't mutilated in that way, then I would struggle to find a husband. I would struggle because I would be seen as less than, right? And when that's ingrained in you, right, of course you're not gonna think anything else, right? Yeah. So it was, to me, like a lot of the work that I'm involved in, like I was like, actually, they're all missing like the human aspect of like how it, and that's why policy impacts us, by the way, terribly, because we're not involved in like how it's written and how like nobody really thinks about us and how it impacts us, right? Because we're not on the table. We don't have these conversations, and I think that was like one of the reasons I realized, okay, you know what, like I feel like I could make a difference here, right? By kind of like bringing together the human aspect and like the human element of like regulations and policies and how they affect us and how they impact us. But like that was the first, and then I started doing work on like social justice, like on like, so I did a lot of work on like diversity and like race, and then I moved on and was doing some work specifically. What did I blank out?
The work that you were doing work.
Before I did, you were doing work.
Yeah, I've just repeated exactly.
The work you were doing. I was definitely doing work. I was doing something. No, I'm trying to remember.
You were trying to tell us how you got from the college days, and then you were doing work, the race work, and with different ethnic groups.
Counter-terrorism policy.
There you go.
That was what I was doing. You already knew. So yeah, it was. So then when I was at universities, there was a counter-terrorism policy that came out that basically, it's called the prevent policy, right? And I think you guys have it to a certain CVE.
Yeah, we had it. Yeah,
here.
They changed the name and they're trying to like jug and finesse it, but
same thing in the UK. Yeah. But like it was to the point where like academics had to monitor students.
It's
right?
the exact same thing. Yeah.
And we ran campaigns around that policy and and it just shifted from everything to something. And then I remember I was involved in like some campaigns on campuses where like black students were like targeted or like attacked or like suspended for wrong reasons. And then it kind of came full circle because then I was elected as the vice president of the National Union of Students, which is like an organization that represents all students in the UK. And in that role, I had to work in sustainability, right? Wow. And I didn't care for sustainability. I was like, I mean, I care for like.
So like environmental
stuff. I didn't
okay.
care. Honestly, at that point. And this is like back, it's like almost like 7 years ago. I genuinely was like, I know this is my job and I have to like line manage this team, but I couldn't care less for the work that they were doing because they were genuinely talking about like plastic straws, turtles, polar bears, planting. They had like a whole program.
Yeah, save the turtles.
About planting trees on campuses.
Yeah,
it's like these people don't care. Like the way the climate like crisis affects us, like they don't care for.
Yeah,
right?
it's on a different level than the conversation that's held most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I came in with like a very ignorant mindset from the job. I was like, I don't want to work with this. I'll just sign off on whatever I need to sign off on, but I'd much rather do more important work, right? And I remember I was on a panel with this guy called Asad Rahman, and he was talking, right? And as he's talking, like, do you know, like when somebody's talking sense.
Yeah,
they just sat there like,
they're spitting.
Yeah. He was spitting fire, and he was just like, in my mind, he was connecting all these social issues that I've been working on all my life, right? That I care about with like environmentalism, right?
Wow.
And he was like, and it was just like, actually, all of it so linked, and I was just an idiot for not that I was an idiot, but I was.
You were ignorant, like you didn't know.
No, it's the story was never told to me in the right way.
Okay.
And that's the best way to put it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I kind of like, I felt like I took that on, like literally, I remember after that panel, I really took that on. I was like, how do I tell stories in the way that it was told to me so other people can understand it in that same way?
Wow.
So, and it kind of just boiled into like.
So can I ask, what is the intersection between all of these other issues that we are dealing with here in the States as well, like race inequality, economic inequality, counterterrorism issues where like the Somali community is being targeted, all these kind of different things. How do they? What is their intersection with the environmentalism? Could you touch on that a little bit?
What's your favorite word?
What?
Carefullism.
Oh, okay.
It truly is, because I think when we understand like what capitalism is, right, at its very root, it's essentially a system that puts profits over people, right, and that in every sense. So when we talk about like the death of black bodies, right, whether it's because of like environmental crises, whether it's because of like the cost of living crisis, like it is because we're choosing whose lives are more significant than others, right,
depending on their economic value.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And so and so that's exactly what systems does. So it kind of just connects everything together. So like when we look at COVID, right, and like how you had people on the front lines, right, what we do, like clapping for them.
Yeah. In
the UK we were applauding them. I don't know if what you guys were doing, but
like we were barely doing that, I ain't gonna lie.
But like they were literally like mostly people from low income backgrounds. The people that were on the front lines were people from black and brown communities, right? They're the ones, I think you guys call them what do you guys, BIPOC?
BIPOC, yeah.
BIPOC, yeah. We don't say that, we say BME. It's a whole nother political conversations in itself. BME.
What does that stand for?
Black and minority ethnics.
Okay.
Or black Asian and minority ethnics, which is BAME.
BIPOC. I don't even know what it stands for.
That's a lot.
Black indigenous people of color.
There you go.
BIPOC.
Yeah, BIPOC.
We don't have indigenous people, so we don't use BIPOC. We use POC.
People of
POC.
Is that people of color or something like that? Yeah. All of it is just.
But it's all disputed.
Yeah.
It's all disputed language.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's consistently black and brown bodies that are the forefront, that are the first to die, that are the first to be impacted. Yesterday I went to see the George Floyd's memorial. Yeah. And like that to me was like, subhanAllah, like a very emotional, like kind of reliving 2020, like because I remember George Floyd's protest. It's triggered also like the campaigns of like all other black deaths at the hands of police in the UK. It triggered also like just deaths that have been neglected or hidden or like by the police, specifically Shukri Abdi's death. Right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Which is a campaign that I was involved in myself.
Wow.
And that is still ongoing. Like the family still don't have justice till this day, and it's gonna be, and it's one of those things that like actually we have to continue to tell these stories. And like one of the things I found really significant as I was walking around is that like there is no forgetting what happened there at all. Every corner that you turn, everything is like, it's the stories told in different ways, again and again and again, whether it's the markers on the floor, whether it's stories like names written on the walls, whether like it's just this, there's no forgetting what happened there, and that's important. I think one of the things that we don't do enough is to continue to like retell stories about communities and how they've been impacted. But yeah, it was, to me, it was just seeing it was like, subhanAllah, it brought me back to like 2020 and the protests and like being on the streets, because I think we all were in different ways in different places.
Absolutely. And I think that was a very transformative time, not only for Minnesota and Minneapolis, but like for the whole world as well. And a lot of people, it was like during a time where people were vulnerable and people were scared because of COVID. And back to what you were saying about capitalism, I know that like one of the biggest recent examples is the fire that happened at, is it Grenfell? The Grenfell Tower. Like that's, I think, is the most, of course there's probably a lot more like nuanced and like specific, but that's like something that over here in America even we've heard about and are reading about, and like that in itself is like a shining example of like how a government can choose other folks over these black and brown people because of the fact that, oh, you guys are less than, you know what I mean? And it comes all the way down to just simply their safety and looking out for them. That was a very unfortunate thing, but that's a great way to look at it. The fact that capitalism is truly the intersection between
100%.
between all of this stuff.
People don't realize I think one of my favorite things to mention like at conferences is that like when we talk about the carbon footprint, right? We talk about like, oh yeah, how much emission are you putting out into the world? And like,
I hate that. Like, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Oh, you're taking flights. Actually, the whole concept of the carbon footprint was like was coined and pushed by like the oil companies, by BP, by Shell. So, and it was a smart initiative to put the blame on the consumer, because they were like, oh shit, we're causing a huge problem in emissions here. Like, how do we shift blame, right? And they basically tactfully and very successfully, by the way, put the blame on individuals, where people can look at themselves and be like, oh, like let's forget about these 100 companies that are emitting like 92% into the world, right? But what are you doing to save the planet? Are you recycling? You know what I mean? And to the point where like it's almost judgmental. It's like, oh yeah, I'm vegan. I'm like, but you're not the problem. Like, we've got bigger problems to deal with.
I'm driving a Prius.
My shit's electric.
My shit's electric, And it's the government too, right? Because the government is protecting these giant companies that are
because these people are getting them into office.
Exactly.
Of course, you're gonna protect your interests.
Lobbyists and all of that. And what are they doing? They're turning it on to us and saying, hey, how come you're not recycling, or how come you're not recycle, reuse, redo, whatever, all that stuff. And like, when you realize it, when I first found out, like I would read an article and I would see like the percentage that like BP contributes compared to the rest of the world, or the percentage that like this industry contributes compared to like an individual. Like when they do those diagrams, I would be like, bro, that's a headache, because it's like the conversation is so built around what can you do as an individual, how can you like, that's why we got these stupid ass paper straws that break and that fall apart when you use them.
You guys all have plastic straws. I know what you're talking about.
It's changed. It was like UK, it was an era. In
the UK, everything is paper. Everything is paper. So
we had it for like, the thing about Americans,
it's actually very inaccessible as well.
The thing about Americans though, Anaka, like we love our like comfortability, and like a lot of American folks, I'm not gonna lie,
I've noticed that.
They're like, bro, the environment, I don't give a fuck about the environment. I want my paper, my plastic straws. Like they're very like, well, they're just straightforward. So they tried it. They tried it for like if it was like a good 6 months where every restaurant you went to, you had paper straws and people had enough. Like I'm talking about, people were upset. They were upset. Starbucks especially. I was like,
you guys are very set in your ways.
Yeah, we are.
Definitely.
And at times it can be good, but at most of the time, 90% of the time, it's not, because things like that happen. But then the conversation should definitely shift to
100%.
And
it needs to.
It's the same. It's really cool because all of it is the same concept, that like when you look at all of these different people, like the story that you had where these poor underprivileged white folks are hating you, who's also a poor underprivileged black person. The idea of race was coined and used to pit people against each other, so that a higher economic status benefits from a lower economic status. You know what I mean?
The gameplay has always been the same.
Yeah, the formula is the same. Yeah,
and then divide and conquer again, divide and conquer again, divide and conquer again. And it's even within, like, you see Somali communities that become divided within themselves. Yeah, right. And so, like, even here in Minnesota, where you have like probably the most successful Somalis in like in politics, right? Like political spaces, like I think. Yeah, Somalis have gotten the furthest here.
Yeah.
Like, you have a Somali Congress, you have Somali councillors, you have Somalis in
everything,
in different levels of powers, right? Where we don't have that in the UK. We've never had a Somali MP, right? So when you see that, but then you see actually like the divisiveness that happens here, right? The amount of like this person versus that person, and I'm like, yeah, it's because like they're being pitted against each other. Yeah. Because now like they've succeeded into the system, and now they're gonna make sure that they work for the system, or like the system will work against them. You know.
And the best way to beat that is doing stuff like having the Rainbow Coalition that they had, where you put aside these differences that have been assigned to you, and you look at where am I right now, where do I want to be, and who do I align with. Like the layman, all of us down here, we all on the same team, whether we like it or not. And the faster we learn, the faster we figure that out.
It. You gotta like take a step back and like look at the bigger picture.
100%.
Like, and I also think that the like, what I think one thing that we sometimes forget, subhanAllah, especially after like maybe like a little bit of success hits us, or like we're celebrated for like the work that we're doing, is that you forget why you do it in the first place, right? And like, and if you are doing like whatever you're doing for praise or success, then you don't have the right intention, right? And so what happens is like people kind of like almost get gaslit into these spaces, and then everyone else becomes the enemy. You know, it's like this mentality of like, this person's against me, these people want me to fail, rather than actually just taking advice, right? Like taking like being like very critical about like where you are, why you're doing it, like what, you know, are you doing the right thing? Should you be stepping away from this? And like, and the subhanAllah, when egos get involved, like it's really difficult to navigate. Like all of us have been in positions like where like we feel like, okay, we're great, we're doing incredible stuff, and so anyone that comes to criticize you, even if it's a good criticism, be like, oh, yo, Zamzam, like I feel like this work isn't a good representation of Islam, right? You're a Muslim woman, don't do this, right? Instead of thinking like the best of that intention, that advice, of being like, you know what, this brother might genuinely be thinking like Zamzam like advising me and like trying to steer me away from something bad. Me thinking like, oh, they want me to fail.
Yeah, you know they hating on me.
It's just a matter of tone, right?
Yeah,
I think it's a matter of a tone, but it's also, I think it's like
being receptive,
receptiveness.
Yeah, right? Taking things with a grain of salt. Yeah,
especially when you're gonna get it's difficult. Even I've been in positions where I've been like, yeah, they're hating. Yeah. And then a week later I thought, nah, you know what? That was some good advice. That was some good advice. And I think this is why you have to really surround yourself with like people that have the best intention for you. Oh yeah. 100%. Definitely surround you with this best intention. Yeah. And like consistently, like, yeah, you gotta ground yourself, like 100%. Those spaces are very difficult to navigate.
Absolutely. So earlier you told us a little bit about how when you got into like this, not advocacy work, but this realm and this industry of like environmentalism, you kind of came in the sense that like you were like, we got bigger problems to deal with. I don't want to deal with this, right? What has, and I don't know, of course, if you do work with a lot of Somali folks or a lot of Somali communities in that capacity, what has the response been when you say something like we need to take care of the environment, or like literally the earth is burning, or this or that? Like, are people receptive to it, especially our own people? Like, is that something that they're willing to to understand? Because I feel like there is a very big dynamic too between Datka or diaspora, how they're affected by the environment, and people in Somalia are affected by the environment way more, like within Somalia, in terms of like how the environment is changing the landscape and how arable the land is and the rainy season and a bunch of other stuff. So what has that experience been like?
Well, that's a big question, I'll be honest.
We asked big questions here.
Yeah, you asked some good questions, mashallah. You know what, the interesting thing is, the one thing I like to remind people, especially like when I because I think I speak in different settings, right? So sometimes like I might be at a conference where like there's a bunch of Adan people and they're all like environmental organizations. Things I'm going to say is going to be very different from like when I'm talking to our own community, right? Or like I'm talking to a room full of Muslims. So you always, I think everything is always about like like messaging,
Yeah.
so about how you tell that story to that person, so it's impactful and it reaches that community. But like in general rooms, I think one of the things I like to remind myself of as well is that like the mass droughts that happened in Somalia, right? And how 250,000 people died, nobody batted the island, right? In the droughts of Somalia.
250,000 people.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
And also so when we talk about like, especially because the West is responsible for those deaths, right? They're directly responsible for those deaths. Like the droughts are directly caused by impact from the emission, right? And so like everything is connected. Like when like the Western world talks about environmentalism from the lens of like, oh, we've got 10 years before things start going left. Like
that's 10 years for them.
Yeah, things have been going left.
Started.
People have like thousands and millions of black and brown bodies have died.
Can I ask real quick then, how direct is the correlation between Western emissions and droughts and floods and like deaths that's happening in third world countries around the world?
I mean, so when it comes to like droughts, when it comes to like floods, there are direct impacts, like sea level rise, right? When weather changes, those are direct impacts, right? But when it comes to like tsunamis and like anything to do with tectonic plates, there's still like science on like on whether it directly impacts it. But I think, which brings me back to the point that you asked, is that like as Muslims, right, we've been told in the Quran that like we have a sense of amana.
Yes, that's right? Huge, yeah.
And therefore we need to take care of it. Yeah. But also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about everything in balance, right? And so, like I was saying earlier, actually, is that like everything in this world has been created as in balance, right? And therefore we as humans might make it out of balance, but like it would exist without us, and it would rebalance itself, right? And so when we are exploiting, like if you continue to take from something, right, at a rate that it can't produce it, right, then it's going to then start to suffer, right? So, and that's exactly what we're doing. Like we're taking from the earth at a rate where it can't recover consistently, right? And if you look at the rate, we're taking from the earth like 4 or 5 times faster than we have in like any era. So we're in a place where like actually we're just bleeding like our food source, our livelihood completely dry. So of course we're gonna get into a situation where like well the world is not gonna be able to sustain itself in that way. But then what'll happen is capitalism will swoop in, and some people will be able to survive because they'll be able to buy things and maintain and buy those resources, and the rest will be the last on the pecking line. Wow. And you know what I mean? And so that's what, there's like a cycle of like how we speak about this. But when I talk about environmentalism, I talk about it from the sense of, especially to our own community, I talk about it from the sense of like our responsibility to the planet. I talk about it from how it impacts us and why it should make us angry. But I also, like, one of the things I don't like to do is place responsibility on somebody. Oh yeah. Right? Like, I don't think there's a responsibility on a young black kid from like Manchester to go and like fight for the climate crisis, right? Yeah. But it's their responsibility to know that how it impacts them, right? It's then their responsibility to know that like how to do something if they want to do something, right? I think one of the things that like I'm very passionate about is equipping people with tools to be able to make change, to do things, right? Because one of the things that pissed me off growing up is that like I was angry about a lot of things, right? And I didn't know how to make those changes. Yeah. And even when I got into positions to be able to make those changes, I still wasn't politically savvy enough to navigate it, right? And like that really closes, like there's doors that are right in front of you that you genuinely can't reach because you just don't know how to get there. And it's annoying, right? And it's frustrating, and it's designed in a way to exclude you, right? And so like I wanted to make sure that like I'm not gatekeeping. I want to be able to like teach people or tell stories in ways that like just like if you care about this, then this is how you do it. This is the door. Like my network's your network. Like how can I support you in that in getting there? But like there's no responsibility, right? The power is in knowing. Like the power is in having the knowledge, right? And understanding that like actually there was a death in London of a little girl because of the air quality in her area. Ella Kisser Deborah was the first ever death related to bad air quality.
Wow.
And it's like kids should know the story. They should know that Ella died because of bad air quality. They should be aware of it. They should learn about these things in school. And that's what I mean. Like, you have to equip people with knowledge to be able to want to make change. You can't make somebody want to make change if they don't understand how it impacts them in the first place.
Yeah, or that they don't understand the urgency that it has, or like you said right now, how it affects them on a day-to-day too. I think that's a very important thing. To go back to one thing that you did say, we do. Well, first of all, like, I appreciate the work that you do. Like, now I feel like I'm getting more of a grasp of like how impactful and even more important that it is. But also the fact that you hate gatekeeping. We hate gatekeepers on the show. Like, we say that over and over again. We don't like it because it's not necessary, right? And I think it's very beautiful and powerful that, like, you're passionate about equipping other people to do the things that they want to do, right? I think that's an amazing thing. So big shout out to you. We love giving people their flowers on the show, and yeah, that's amazing. Wallahi, that's amazing.
Can't gatekeep. Do you know what I always think though is that, like, people that gatekeep think they made it by themselves and they got there by themselves, but like, none of us, like, regardless of how hard we've worked, have done anything by ourselves. Like, there was so much sacrifice that came before us, even before our parents. Like, there were people that, like, opened doors for you that you will never meet, that you will never know. And you need to, like, humble yourself and, like, know that you ain't shit. you know?
we're all just trying to get by.
We're just trying to get by, you know. And, like, subhanAllah, if you can, like, open doors for another person, or, like, you know, make somebody's work easier because of what you've done, then you should be proud of yourself. You should say alhamdulillah, like, at least I've done that, you know.
Yeah, that in itself is a big blessing.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, I'm just piecing together things, and then you could, because we don't really know each other that well.
Nah.
But your work with the UN and being a UN advocate and a UN advisor, how did that happen? What is that like? What's that experience like? Like, I feel like the UN is made to be this big, scary kind of thing, but also a lot of people have some negative things to say about the UN because they're like, they don't really do anything. But alhamdulillah, like, a lot of especially Somali folks can attest to, like, the UN helping out a lot too, and supporting, at least in our capacity. So first of all, like, what was that experience like? How did that even happen? Like, how did that go down, and how do you navigate that as well? If you could touch on that, please.
I think maybe I should give context, because I founded an organization. Well, I co-founded an organization called SOS UK. Okay. It's called Students Organised Sustainability, and SOS UK has an international branch, SOS International and SOS UK, and it's through the work of SOS UK that, like, we started working with the UN program. So, and that's
based in the UK.
The UNEP is based in the UK, but the SOS International is based in. Actually, the office is now moving to Ghana, but, like, it's an international base, so, like, we work with student unions across the country, basically the world. And so SOS is kind of like actually what opened those doors for me. So, like, early when I was saying that, like, I had to work with this sustainability team, and careful, that sustainability team ended up becoming an organization. Okay. Like, by itself, it moved out of, like, NUS and it became its own entity. And one of the things I should give them credit for is that, like, when I came with criticism and I was like, none of the work that you're doing is representative of, like, my experiences and the way I see the climate crisis, they were like, okay, cool. Like, how do we change it? Like, what do we do differently? And that then turned into just becoming a completely separate organization and doing more impactful work, and doing more challenging and more radical work. We founded a campaign called the Climate Education Bill, Teach Your Future, where, like, it was the first education bill that went through Parliament written by young people. Like, students wrote that bill. Like, the youngest person was 8. Wow. So, like, it was cool. It was like we did some really cool radical work. And yeah, so that's how I kind of, like, got into, like, all this different policy. And then I started to see that, like, policy change is really where it's at. Whether it's, like, through, like, storytelling, whether it's through, like, building a campaign, whether it's through creating movements, like, policy change is really what we need to be focusing at. Like, that's where change comes about, because it's written into law and it has to happen, right? And so that's kind of when I got involved in, like, policy change and policy work, and then just started working with, like, the UN program on different things, whether it was education policy, whether it was, like, climate education specifically, and then recently I was selected as as an advisor on the Green Jobs Pact, which came out of like there's a COP conference, and it's like the conference of the parties, and it happens like annually actually around the world. The next one's happening in Dubai, where they discuss like climate policy, and like how they move towards like the goals that they've set themselves, and and it's like all the countries come together and they negotiate and they agree things and they allocate money, like there's like a whole thing. That conference happens yearly, and they make decisions. And one of the things they decided in the last COP, and they launched the last COP, was that they were going to do create a billion jobs, like green jobs for young people.
Okay.
And I'm an advisor on that particular project as well.
So 1 billion jobs worldwide?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a lot.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not a lot, but it's supposed to be about a part of like a wider program. But I think the whole concept behind it, which is interesting, which I'm finding intriguing, because obviously my interest is in like training and upskilling people, because that's how you develop an economy, right?
Yeah.
Like you train and upskill continuously.
Building like the next generation.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and even the thing is, right, like most people go to study, and like whatever they studied is kind of like out of tune. It's gonna be non-existent couple of years later. Like we're moving in a world where like the job market is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I don't think it's changed at this pace ever before. So like you have to be able to keep up, right?
Especially with technology.
Yeah, 100%. But like the thing is, right, and like so we're doing like the creation of green jobs, but like a lot of tech jobs are green jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Like a green job is a job that like doesn't take away from the planet.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
So when you said green jobs, I was thinking about like wind farms and solar panels.
That's what everyone thinks. Everyone's like, yeah. Everyone thinks it's like an actual green job. It's like an environmental job. And it's not necessarily. I mean, I think a massive focus on what I want to do is like looking at like how you change qualifications and degrees from like, I don't know, like working at an oil rig, right, to working at like a wind
that's
farm,
really
right?
smart. Yeah.
So I think those are the traditions we're going to need.
And that's advantageous to those people that have those skills, because how much longer are we going to be using oil? It's running out already, and it's just not efficient. So if we can, that's really good. If we can find ways to like shift these people that have these engineering degrees and train them into doing this other stuff, that would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be really.
So you were talking about just kind of creating green jobs, of course, with that. You said it's that kind of folks come together from all over the world, different representatives. That's what I got so far, and they kind of help create green jobs. And you were kind of getting to how that led you to working with the UN and kind of creating that context and that storyline as well for us. So you could just start from wherever.
I summated pretty well.
Wherever, yeah.
Yeah, you basically summated it.
I was listening. Active listening is very important when you're interviewing people. You can't doze off.
Nah, you did good. But yeah, no, that's how I got involved with working in the UN. It was never like an intentional like work.
Yeah.
Like UN's like one of the bodies we work with, right? We work with like other organizations all around the world, and so yeah, it was just another body. I've never seen it as like I work for the UN.
Yeah.
I don't work for the UN. I work with the UN, and I'm more of a consultant than anything.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would ever work for the UN because of like some of the things that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like, there's a few problematic things in there.
I think bureaucracy is at the detriment of like just the regular people, because shit just takes so long, and like you got to sit through like a whole bunch of like
huge machine.
Yeah, litigation and just to change one word, like they got to go back.
Yeah, I know.
Which I guess it's the systems are there for the right reasons to make sure. But
you know what? It's interesting because I remember like my first ever COP conference, right? And then like there'd be a one word change, and they would do that. They would have to go back to lawyers, each country, and it's because like a word can change the meaning of a sentence in a different language when it's translated, right? And so
okay, that's even crazier.
That's what blew my mind. I was like, damn.
So like in Arabic it could be different than it is in Mandarin, and then
so
now
they have to go back and like they have to make sure that like what they're agreeing makes sense in all languages, right? And it's like, and it, you know, like it has the same value, the same, and then also on top of that, there's like the political negotiations of like, do I want this sentence in the framework that I'm going to agree to? So like there's continuous back and forth.
It was reminding me of a show, the episode on Family Guy, where
this guy loves Family Guy. Do you guys watch Family Guy?
Yeah, of course
okay.
Where,
I don't know anything about.
Yeah, where they were like, the Second Amendment was like you have the right to bear bare arms, and they thought they were actually talking about
bare arms. Like claws and everything.
You have the right to have a pair of bare arms in your house.
Sounds about right.
They're probably making fun of that, like
specific
language. And
you guys are very big about your Second Amendment here.
Oh yeah.
Second Amendment. Literally, somebody was like to me, like, I can't believe the United Kingdom lets the people walk around without protecting themselves. I said, even our police are protected.
It's very interesting how you guys can like do the American accent like that, and then when I try to do the British accent, I sound like
but you know what it is?
Thomas
we
the
grow
Train
up with it.
like
everything is.
Yeah.
Like, American is the
standard
culture, which I guess African American culture
it
is
is
the mainstream culture.
It is, dude.
Right? So all of us can do it because we've grown up with it, we've watched it.
That is like one of the craziest concepts and ideas like in world history. The idea that African American culture, back to capitalism, African American culture and like black culture in America was amazing, and then the US said, oh, we like that, we're gonna take that, capitalize on it, not give you shit.
Absolutely.
And then now this is the standard for the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Isn't that insane?
It's insane.
The entire world, like when we were in Spain, what's up bro, like the dev, hey, you listen to Tupac, the little kids, and I'm like, yo, these little kids, they're like so
you famous? You
basketball, they're like the American culture, which essentially is the black American culture.
Black America,
and then
Black American all music, any music goes back to Black America. Like it's insane.
Rock and roll, jazz,
Black history,
hip hop,
Black history
all of it is.
This honestly, Black Americans have like had so much extracted from them. It's one of them is like, I guess, one of the most resilient stories.
It's a modern day miracle. It's quite literally. I was there's an African American masjid literally down the street, Masjid Noor, right? Okay. And one of the Friday lectures, the Imam, he was talking about, it was the day before Juneteenth or 2 days before Juneteenth. So he was talking about how like the idea that, and Mustafa Briggs also talks about this too. I think he's from the UK, right?
UK, yeah.
He talks about the idea that like a lot of people say, oh, there's not like any modern day that miracles, right? But the idea that a Muslim slave was taken from Africa and brought to America and stripped of his name, his culture, everything. And there's evidence, there's history of like, they would write the dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam said, which is, oh Allah, grant me lineage and my lineage being Muslims and a good lineage. They would have that. They would write that in pieces of paper, and like they would find, there's evidence, and they would find that, and they'd be like, oh, these slaves, I guess, spoke Arabic, or they wrote in Arabic or whatever. But like, then the idea that those same folks are the same folks that not even like thousands of years later, 100, 200 years later, there's Malcolm X. 100, 200 years later, there's this huge Islamic revolution, and all these people are coming back to their faith and becoming Muslim. But those same people are the people that literally wrote the script for what culture is around the world.
Absolutely.
That's just, there's nothing more cold-blooded than that. Like, for them to be, we're talking about millions of people kidnapped, and stripped from everything, and then they're like, you know what, I'm gonna get it out the mud, and they did. It's insane. And then capitalism,
it really is. It's cold. Honestly,
it's cold-blooded.
African American history is like, I geek out on that stuff. Like I can't wait to like just travel around and like go to historical sites, and like that's been like one of my things that I've been wanting to do for years. In
Chicago, they have a museum. They have African American.
So honest. I'm going to Chicago, guys.
The African American History Museum. Go there. It's insane. Like, we're talking about, like, they have.
There's a lot of African history museums in Chicago. I saw like 3, 4.
Yeah.
There's a specific one that has like like the old artifact.
Yeah, and it has the door. What's his name? Is it Fred Hampton, or the movie Judas and the Black Messiah? The guy that movie is about. I think it's Fred Hampton. It's one of them. He's from Chicago, Black Panther Party. They killed him.
Former Black Panther.
I could be wrong on his name, but they literally killed him. And the door that the police shot through, is the shotgun pellets and everything that killed him, they have it there. Like, you can see it. It's insane. It's insane.
That's crazy.
But they're like, just their culture and their story is amazing, and how connected, like, African Muslims are to that story
Yeah.
is even more insane. And Mustafa Briggs, he talks about that a lot. And
Yeah, he talks about that a lot.
he's really good at like articulating that too. And it blew my mind because Aniga, when I came to the Americas, we're constantly told, oh, you're different. Oh, you have no heritage here. You have nothing to do with you. But then when you learn about the fact that, oh, I'm a black Muslim, like an African Muslim, and my folks was here.
So the UK, interestingly, there's a level of erasure of black Muslim communities in the UK because the population is mostly Asians.
Okay.
Right? So Asian Muslims, and then you have Arab Muslims.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the standard of Muslims. I remember when I first moved to the UK, nobody thought I was Muslim. I wasn't wearing the hijab. I was a little curly haired girl, right?
Yeah.
And so nobody would attain me to be Muslim. And then when I decided to wear the hijab, they'd be like, when did you become Pakistani?
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Because like that's how they understood Muslims were like, these were Muslims. Like we were seen as just black kids.
Yeah.
Right? Or we were seen as reverts. Like there was like so it's and I mean now it's completely different because there's so many Somalis in the UK. Like back then
that was the standard.
It wasn't the standard. And so but over time, there's just been like when we talk about Muslim communities, like we're talking about Asian communities, we're talking about Arabs. So Mustafa Briggs does a lot of work around like
he's amazing.
Of black Muslims within communities and reclaiming our history. Because I'm sick and tired of being like, brother or sister, we're not racist. You know, what about Bilal, please?
Yeah,
if you're Bilal.
That's his book. His book is Beyond Bilal. It's called Beyond Bilal, and
that's where it came from.
Yeah, it's the most. If anybody wants to read it, literally read the first 3 chapters. You don't even need to read the whole book. The first 3 chapters of that book, he goes through all of the companions of the Prophet that are people of color.
Yeah,
and it will blow your mind. You'll be like, huh? Yeah. And that like I said, it changes even your perspective, which is like your perspective being, oh, me being Muslim, like you kind of feel like I'm not Arab, I'm not Asian, so like I have nothing to do with it.
We're gonna be proud of our history.
Which is like the complete opposite. The first home of Islam was East Africa, is Ethiopia, the first place where Muslims practiced Islam freely.
Asham?
No, Asham is Persia, is Syria and Persia, but the first place that Islam was practiced freely, where Muslims were welcomed, was by Najashi, and in Ethiopia. That's where the masjids were built and all of that. And the idea that the mother of Ismail, who the lineage of Muhammad alayhi salam comes from, is an African woman. Hajar is an African woman from that same kind of area to Sudan, if I'm not South Sudan area, if I'm not mistaken. And the idea that the reason why people go back, because we did Umrah, the reason that we go back and forth from Safa is because of a black woman. So like the idea that people can then look at you as a black Muslim woman and say, you're not Islam. And then at the same time go do Hajj and do the same thing Hajj was doing. It just doesn't make any sense. So, and everything, all of that is purposeful, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did that on purpose to bring us together, to show us that every aspect and every group around the world has something to do with this beautiful faith. So absolutely. We could talk about that for hours and for days.
That's true.
It's amazing though. Yeah. Maybe, hey, shout out to him.
Contextually, it's funny because I always think like the Bilal anecdote is equivalent to like I have a white friend.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
To avert like just racism.
Yeah, it very much is. 100%. So we have a segment on the show called Let's Get Practical, where we try to give folks who are listening in on your episode a practical way in which they can do what you do. And like you said already, it's amazing because every single person that we have on, they hate gatekeepers just as much as we do. You know what I mean? So we don't even have to explain that. But if somebody is watching, if a kid is watching and they want to do advocacy work in any capacity, what are some practical steps that they can take to do that, inshallah?
So I think to demystify like the work, find something you care about. Like, and often like when you care about something, it's something that like really pisses you off. Like, can I swear in this podcast?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He was like, yeah.
He's like, let's do it.
But like honestly, find something that makes, because you guys don't say pisses you off. Every time I said pisses you off around my cousins, all of them bust out laughing. They're like, say that again. But like something that like makes you angry, right? Like, and then think about how you like to see it differently, right? Because I think people sometimes think like I I didn't get involved in this work through like a process. I didn't go to university for it. I didn't like take a job for it. Like it was just stuff that I was angry about. And I was like, okay, well, how would I like to see it differently?
Yeah.
And then thinking about how can I make a difference in that space.
Absolutely.
And it's just doing it. Like I think like maybe parents that are watching this, or like young people that are watching this, like it's like, how can you educate your own community about like what makes you angry, like the people around you? Start small, like talk to your friends about something, right? And then talk to your family, make small changes, like volunteer at like youth groups that are doing that work. I think often when we realize is that like there are like probably hundreds of people around you in your close vicinity that care about the same thing that you care about.
Absolutely.
Right? That are angry about the same things that you are angry about because they live the same lives as you, right? And so like we need to like kind of step out from this like mentality of like we're going through this alone, and like realize that actually we're all going through similar experiences, and we all have things that we're angry about, and actually everybody's waiting for somebody else to step forward and do something.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, one of the things I'm always every single time, it's the first time, right? It's like I'll start a campaign, or I'll do a call out for something, and like hundreds of people just be like, yes, I want to. This has been pissing me off too. Like, how do we get behind this? How do we support you?
Yeah.
And it's just like it comes out of nowhere, subhanAllah, right? And that's the thing. Like, it's just taking action. It's like doing something and stepping up.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing we see on like social media. Whenever there's something happening in the community, one people that are supporting us, your own community themselves. So,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
A community comes out. Like when they show out. Yes. They do. They definitely do. And I think there's a thing of like how do we tell stories in ways that like people understand? And like because the reality is, when our community comes out, it's because we've told the story from our perspective, right?
I love that though, because that's definitely the sunnah too, meeting people where they are, right? Explaining things to them how they understand it. And I'm not gonna lie, especially here in the States, a lot of the advocacy work is like a lot of like, I'm gonna shove this down your throat, and you have to understand me because what I'm saying is right. And like we get that what you're saying is right, but like it's also important to be gentle, to meet people halfway, to help people understand, because 9 times out of 10 everybody relates to what you're saying. They just don't know how they relate to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. And I think this is the thing though, like regardless, the decision is going to get made, policy is going to get written, things are going to get passed, and it's going to happen with or without you on the table.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think there's, but like we have like power in numbers, right? And so where legislators are trying to pass things through, if nobody's making noise, they're going to be able to pass it through easily. Right? So if something's going to impact you adversely, then do something about it.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that like systems are set up to do is to take away agency from us, to make us feel like we don't have power, but actually we are probably the most powerful people in the room, especially when we have numbers on our sides. Like if I can mobilize hundreds, and social media does that so easily now,
so quickly.
You just jump on internet and be like, it's happening, here, everybody's outside.
Come through.
Everyone's like, I'm outside, let's go. They're all rolling through. And this is the thing, like we have the ability to do that, right? And we have the ability to do that because like they've heard it from somebody that they can relate to, that they understand. It's like, I know your lived experiences, they're like similar to mine, and so if you're saying this is important and we can change something, I'm right behind you.
There's a level of trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you make change. That's how you bring people together.
Okay, I like that. So, I from what I'm hearing, if I want to start doing this advocacy work, I think the first thing is definitely like start small. Like look at the conversations that you want to have. Before that, actually, you said, find something that pisses you off, right? Find something that you're passionate about, that you're like, I gotta change something about this. And I like that you demystified the work, that it's not this big rocket science work. It's start small, start with educating, and then advocating, and find your way through these things. And I think another thing that's very important to the work that you do is networking and building these connections that you have, so that you can be able to do the work that you do.
People power. It's the most powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And like I am as powerful as the people around me, and the people that support me, and the people that encourage me, and you know what I mean? Like you step into, I have not been able to pass policies or like even step into rooms because of like Zamzam's incredible work. Like Zamzam's a nobody. Zamzam's done nothing significant, right? But it's because Zamzam has had support, right? And has been able to speak for and speak on stories that are bigger than myself.
Absolutely,
right? And that's what makes the work that I'm doing significant. It's nothing to do with me, right? And so I think networking is incredibly important, but it's not even a network. I think it's seeing it as like a community, like
relationship building is
It's like seeing, like, the thing is the way and I'm a trainer, so I train people on like how to build a campaign, how to like set up like movements and etc. And like one thing I like to remind people is that like movements are there is no hierarchies within movements. Right? Nobody is in control of a movement. A movement comes together when people who are like-minded, who are pissed off about the same thing, right, want to make change towards that. And what makes it a movement is that they have like a collective like vision of what they're going to do, right? But it moves and it shifts and it changes in terms of like what it's looked like or what it's going to achieve. But there is no individual, like there's no I in movement. You can't have a movement with I. That's how movements fall apart, right?
Absolutely.
That's how movements die.
That's how you get assassanated. Because if there's a singular person that's running a movement, you become all they have to do is take out that singular person, and the whole movement is done. But
I mean, this is
MLK?
MLK, Malcolm X. There's a list. There's a very long list of that. Yeah,
there's a long list. There's a long list of people being targeted, of movements being taken down,
of course,
of movements being corrupted. I mean, Black Lives Matter movement here, like the targeting, it's. I mean, even in the UK, the Black Lives Matter organization, like they don't have any of their information on the websites, online, or nothing.
That's smart.
But even then, they've been able to like infiltrate and like target them and attack them. You know what I mean? So it's difficult to do anything that like is of that significant without like infiltration, because the system's obviously you're against the system. The system's going to take you down because it's wealthier than you. It's more resource than you. But like I think this is the thing, like you just pick back up and start again continuously. Like that's I think that's what resilient movements are. It's understanding that like we're going to be infiltrated, we're going to be broken down, we're going to lose motivation, we're going to be burnt out, but we're going to start again, we're going to move again, and you just continue doing it. And I think one of the great things about being a Muslim as well in this space, because it's exhausting and it defeats you sometimes, right, is that like you're consistently like, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu, right? So it's a selfish reason for myself as well. Like I believe that like I'm doing something for the greater good, and I'm going to get rewards for it at the afterlife. So if I don't win here, I'm going to win in the afterlife.
In the afterlife,
do you know what I mean? So each way, like there's a selfish gain for me anyways in the work that I'm doing.
It's all very based on your intentions.
Absolutely. 100%.
That's the hadith. 100%. The hadith is strange as the affairs of a believer, because when they're afflicted with hardship, they say Alhamdulillah, because they know they will get rewarded in the afterlife for being patient in that hardship. And when they get something nice or something good, they say Alhamdulillah. So it's a very different perspective than the neo-capitalist perspective of like everything has to go right for me right now.
I know, and it's so
consumerism and
like when I organize and like when you poured so much into something, right? Like I'll take like Shukri Abdi's campaign for example, right? And like when the inquiry happened, it didn't go our way. Like it was genuinely heartbreaking. Like I was like broken, but like at the end of the day, like justice is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right?
Absolutely.
And like I may not understand like why things played out in the way they did, or like what but I don't have any qualms with Allah subhanahu because I don't have that wisdom or that understanding, right? And so it's difficult to navigate, subhanAllah, especially when you get drawn into these things in these worlds. And it's but also I'm very grateful because like when you're involved in these spaces, it does consume a lot. It does really like break you down. It does, like, we grew up in a world where consistently as black people we're told that we're less significant, we're less this, we're less that, like we're consistently like beaten down. So I need to be able to like celebrate some wins to be able to keep going, right? And I don't think we do that enough actually as a community.
Lie, we don't. And what we do want to do though is celebrate you and make sure that, you know, that's what we do here on Ghost Talk, and we appreciate you and the work that you do, and we definitely appreciate you coming on the show. We have a lot more to talk about. Wallah. I feel like we can go on for days.
I think I've spoken so many different topics.
I know so much to talk about. Wallah, alhamdulillah, you're a very interesting person, and the work that you do is amazing. The advocacy, the work that you do is amazing, and it's very admirable as well that you implement so much of your faith and your culture into it. So Ilahuku barakah, may Allah protect you and continue to help you and guide you in the endeavors that you have. Whenever anybody comes on the show, we tell them that you're a part of the Ghost Talk family, you know. So like it's like you said, when you're trying to create a movement, it's not necessarily about connections, it's about relationships, right? And the origins of this podcast was a way for a group of cousins and family members to kind of hold each other accountable, right? And every episode they say, okay, did you do that thing you said you were gonna do, or did you improve on this thing that you wanted to do? And it's a very beautiful and admirable thing, because that was, back in the day, that was the essence of community, right? We were all together, we all loved on each other, supported each other. And so before you go, inshallah, I did wanted to invite you back, hopefully in a year's time. We'd love to have you. And here, the Ghost Talk family is here for you in any capacity, of course. And then I wanted to know as well, like, where do you see yourself in a year's time? Where do you see yourself? What do you want to do? And I want to also tell you that the answers for that has ranged from like very like monetary things, like saying I want to have X amount of dollars in a year, and some people have said I just want to be alive next year, you know what I mean? So it's important to not push people to goals just for the sake of like social media, you know. But we'd love to know that what do you want to, where do you see yourself in a year's time? What do you want to do, inshallah?
You know what, I don't really set goals, that's the thing. I've never been a goals person. I just kind of like,
you kind of live,
go with the flow.
Kind of go with the
I
flow.
really go with the flow. Like, I like to challenge myself.
Okay.
And I like to do more, like something more radical than what I did last year. Like continuously. That's what I
that's wonderful.
There actually is an organization that I'm planning on. I've been wanting to set up for the longest, and maybe I will. Maybe next year will be the year that I do it.
Inshallah.
But it's that I want to start working with more our community specifically, because right now I do a lot of training, like for corporates, for like NGOs, and I feel like a lot of my work over the last decade has become like a little bit detached from grassroots communities, and I miss working with people like that look like me, that sound like me, that have like my own lived experiences. So yeah, I think I want to do more grassroots work. That's one thing I really want to do. I want to set up an organization. It's been a dream of mine for a little bit. And it's just train young girls, like young Somali girls, on like getting into political spaces.
Love that.
It's like a political, like a political academy as such, a political education academy. That kind of teaches them how to navigate politics, how to build a campaign, how to like work within their local councils, how to become a youth MP. Just like kind of like just give them the tools that I was angry that I didn't have. Yeah,
and I like what you said in the beginning as well. You wanted to be doing more radical things than you were doing the year before, and just continue in that. That's amazing. That's dope.
That's always the goal. Yeah, continue, like, it's like, oh, okay, how can we now push it further? Yeah,
we love that, inshallah. So hopefully, inshallah, we'll have you back in a year's time. Inshallah. And we appreciate you. Thank you so much. This was an amazing episode. Me and Thunder we learned a lot. Definitely. We learned a lot. Like, I gotta go debrief my brain and write down notes. Mashallah, you taught us a lot. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
I feel like I was just waffling.
No, wallah, you did amazing. That's a word we learned too, waffling. That's a new word.
It's not another new word.
But there you have it, folks. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Peace.